I want you to remember, Clark, in all the years to come, in all your most private moments, I want you to remember my hand at your throat. I want you to remember the one man who beat you. Hi, David O'Sullivan here, and this video I'm doing a review for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. The time has finally come. It's here, one of the biggest movies of the year, one of the most anticipated movies of the year. The first time in like 75 years of the characters existing, we're going to see Batman and Superman on screen together in the same film for the first time. This is it, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. The second film coming off from Man of Steel, which was this rebooted Superman origin story by Zack Snyder also, who comes back to direct this. The second film in this new DC extended universe, and this really is the start of this new DC universe. You could argue that Man of Steel was, but that was really just centred on Superman and focused on him as a character, while this is really introducing us to the larger DC cinematic universe, introducing new characters and essentially setting it up for the Justice League. First off, starting with positives, I have positives and negatives with this film, but I may as well start with the positives. And by far the biggest positive I can give this film are the performances by the cast, namely Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Like I said in my first reaction, I'm not quite yet sure whether this is my favourite interpretation of the character on screen, because I really like Christian Bale and the Dark Knight trilogy and what they did there. As far as being, true to the comics visually anyway, this is just one of the best Batmans we've ever had. I mean, just looks wise, it looks incredible. I mean, the bat suit, Ben Affleck, how he really looks the part as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. And I think he did a really good job. I really think he's probably the best thing about this film, and probably the most interesting and exciting sequences in the film were those involving Batman. And I was getting to see this new interpretation of the character, and I think what the film succeeded in the most was introducing us to this new Batman and setting up this new Batman going forward. And in that respect, it succeeded triumphantly in what it set out to do, because they really did a great job at introducing us to this new Batman. Like I said, Ben Affleck did a great job in the role. I really liked him as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Like I said in my reaction, it's probably the most badass Batman we've ever seen. I mean, the fight sequences are probably some of the best Batman fight sequences ever put to film. I mean, he's just totally relentless and badass and violent and just hard-hitting, intense. It is just great. Perhaps my only criticism as far as Batman is concerned is the fact that he does kill in this film. And when I first initially heard that, because I did find out before I went to see the film, when I did initially find out that he does kill, I was just really angry and upset and annoyed that they decided to do that. Because for me, one of the most fundamental things about the character is that he doesn't kill. With Superman, I can kind of let it slide a little. I wasn't up in arms about the fact that he killed Zod in Man of Steel, because he kind of had to, didn't really have any other choice. And of course, Superman being this superpowered being going up against really powerful adversaries, it kind of makes sense in that respect. He kind of would need to kill in certain occasions. With Batman, he's just going up against regular criminals. I don't see why he needs to kill. I don't think it's entirely necessary. And like I said, it's the whole kind of moral dilemma about Batman, is that he's a crime fighter. He wants to bring justice, but he doesn't want to cross that line and go and become a criminal. He doesn't want to kill. He's constantly on that fine line between a hero and a criminal, but then he never goes too far and never kills. Like in Batman Begins, it's like, I'm the executioner. Compassion is an enemy your weaknesses will not share. That's why it's so important. It separates us from them. But of course in this, as far as the no killing is concerned about the character, that is all completely thrown out the window in this film, and I was expecting to really take against it and not like it at all. But I was kind of okay with it. They didn't go too far, you didn't actually see Batman murdering people, like, with his hands or anything. There are certain times when you see things blow up and things get destroyed and people getting blown up or whatever and shot, and you're like, yeah, people are actually dying, but I kind of was on board with it because of the fact that this is a different interpretation of the character. It's a much darker, edgier version of the character, a version in which he's older, he's darker, he's more violent, he's kind of gone off the edge a little bit. And I kind of like that new take on the character. It's like, what if this was a Batman who had gone too far, who had just gone off the edge and become much darker, more violent. He has crossed that line, he has gone off the edge and he can't return, and I kind of like that. But as great as Ben Affleck was in the role of Bruce Wayne and Batman, he didn't steal the show. There were a lot of great performances. Obviously we got Henry Cavill back as Superman, and I really like Henry Cavill as Superman. I really liked him in Man of Steel, but I think I liked him even more in this film. I think people may overlook his performance and say it's a little kind of like boring, it's like not much going on, he doesn't really get much to do. And it's kind of true. I mean, Batman does kind of overshadow him in a way, in that Batman is just really cool and badass and awesome and it's just so much fun to watch in that respect. But I think Henry Cavill's Superman is also just as well realised and as well written and as well performed by Henry Cavill. It is more understated, you know, but I like that. It's a nice contrast between him and Batman. Superman's more calm and cool and collected. He rarely kind of like goes crazy. Batman's the more elaborate one, the more flamboyant, theatrical one. But like I said, I like that contrast. I like that Superman, it is more understated, it is more grounded in that respect. And I think that works really well in terms of grounding the character, like I said, with these emotional vulnerabilities that allow us to connect with the character and relate to him, because we understand what he's going through. We can feel for him, like, because even though he's this godly, super powered, extremely powerful being, he's got these very human flaws, these emotional problems and struggles and vulnerabilities that he's going through. Because yes, physically he's very powerful and godlike, but emotionally, psychologically, he's just like one of us, and we really get to have a look inside his head and see how it's really affecting him in that way, the whole backlash against the final battle of Man of Steel, and how some people see him as a saviour and yet others are scared of him and think he's like, here to destroy us, don't welcome him at all. And I really like that whole kind of moral dilemma there, because if there was a being like that in the real world, there would be a big debate over him. I mean, we get it with celebrities in the real world, that even the most popular, famous ones kind of split opinion, like some people love them, some people hate them, and it would be the same with a godly, superpowered figure like Superman. It would be very controversial, and I like how they showed that and depicted that in the events in the beginning of the film. I think that was done really well, and like I said, Henry Cavill, I think his performance is quite nuanced and understated. It isn't over the top, but I like that. It helps to kind of ground the character, make it feel more real and relatable to the audience. And of course, the third member of the Trinity who's appearing in this film is Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. And although I don't think her performance was all that amazing, acting wise, it wasn't the best performance ever, but in terms of looking the part and fulfilling her action duties, she did an incredible job. I mean, you never once think, oh, that doesn't look, very good. I mean, she just looks the part. You believe that she is Wonder Woman, and then, like I said, in the action sequences, she really kicks ass, and you buy into it. It looks believable and convincing, and I think she did a great job in that respect in the physical department. In terms of the acting department, she wasn't terrible, but there were some lines that did seem a little stiff and wooden. I mean, it wasn't horrendously bad, like I said. It did work, and I think she did do a good job in the role. She doesn't have that massive a role, she doesn't have that many lines, but when she did show up and when she did join in with the action, there was just some great moments there. And like I said, in terms of the action sequences, she was just great and so much fun to watch, so no complaints there. I'm looking forward to the Wonder Woman solo movie. Hopefully we'll get to see more of her character there and understand what's going on there with her backstory. So yeah, overall I did like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Another one of the new characters that I really liked in this film was Alfred, played by Jeremy Irons. I knew going into this film, I kind of suspected that I would really like him and his take on this, his performance with this new take on the character of Alfred, and I really liked it. He doesn't have a massive part, like I said before, but in the bits in which we do see him, he's just great. He had some humour to it. I was quite snarky and kind of sarcastic. I would snap back at Bruce and just make certain remarks and comments, and I just really liked his take on the character of Alfred. It's probably my favourite interpretation of the character on screen. I love Michael Caine and the Alfred of the older movies as well, but I just really loved Jeremy Irons as Alfred in this film. It was just great. I don't have any bad things to say about it. Whenever he was on screen, I just loved it. It was just so good. And also the final new member to the cast I'm going to talk about is Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I mean, he's been getting a lot of hate from a lot of reviewers who are just saying he's just rubbish and it's not like Lex Luthor at all, and he's just so stupid and idiotic and foolish and you can't take it seriously. But I actually kind of like this new take on the character, and I kind of like Jesse Eisenberg's performance in the role. And I was one of those people that when I watched the trailers, I was like, what? It was the only thing I really didn't like about the trailers. I was like, I'm not buying into this new take on the character at all. But I just, opened my mind and just decided let's just give it a try. And I actually kind of liked him. I think he did a good job. Obviously, it's very different, It's not the Lex Luthor we know. But I like the fact that they just did this very new, different take on the character, how he was more of just a sick, twisted psychopath. Like I said in my other video, if someone was that clever and also that evil at the same time, he would be kind of crazy and insane. And I kind of liked how he showed that in his performance. It did go a little over the top and zany at certain moments, but it never went too far for me. It never got laughable for me, and I like the fact that it was kind of like he had this kind of like facade when he was in public, kind of like Bruce Wayne, like make him. I kind of read it in that way, that he wasn't really that clownish. He was kind of just putting on an act, like a mask, when he was out in public, but he was actually much more sinister and twisted and evil underneath. So it's kind of like a Moriarty kind of thing. And like I said, I think I like this new take on the character, and I think Jesse Eisenberg did a really good job with what he was given. And also I like the fact that Lex Luthor actually posed a very kind of big threat to Superman, because coming off of Man of Steel and going a bit up against Zod and the Kryptonians, I was thinking, how the hell are they going to up the threat level from that? But really, when you think about it, Man of Steel, he didn't really have all that much of a tough time and challenge defeating the Kryptonians. He had a little bit of a tough time wrangling with the World Engine there, and obviously he was Zod at the end. But other than that, he didn't find it all that difficult. Whereas in this film, Superman, he's really challenged, not just physically, but psychologically. Like Lex Luthor really gets at him in a very kind of psychological way that really kind of breaks him and really kind of like challenges him and puts him into turmoil more than he ever was, I would say, that he was in Man of Steel. And I think that was just credit to the character of Lex Luthor and how he was able to get to Superman in that way and really affect him and break him and put him into turmoil through not physical means but psychological means. And I really like that he was able to get at him in that way and really kind of like challenge him in a psychological way, and he was kind of like powerless, not because he was physically powerless, but because there was nothing he could do to get at him. He was really being like torn down and torn apart through psychological means. And I kind of like that. It helped it seem different from Man of Steel in terms of the villain behind the scenes is more of a manipulator, more of a psychological threat. And another one of the biggest positives I can give this film is the merging of the two worlds of Batman and Superman into one film. Because I was worried going in, the fact that this is the first time we're seeing this new interpretation of Batman, and we're seeing, obviously we didn't get anything in Man of Steel, it was just all Superman, all Superman's world, Superman characters, all just a solo Superman story. So for them to jump from that into this whole kind of interconnected universe with Batman and all these, Batman's world and his characters and all these other characters, I was worried it would seem a little all over the place, and it was in certain respects, but in terms of the merging of the two different worlds of Superman and Batman into one film, I think they did a really good job. The two different sides of the story, from like Superman's perspective, and then we see it from Batman's perspective, and we see where Superman's coming from, we see where Batman's coming from, and we see how they have these like conflicting ideologies and these differences that they have that bring them into conflict. And I liked how it was all connected and all brought together, and I think they did a really good job in that respect. Also, another thing that I really liked, which was a thing that I liked about Man of Steel, is the grounded real world feel and tone to the majority of the film. Like I said, that was one of the things I liked about Man of Steel, how they made it feel, how they kind of like grounded it in kind of a realistic, believable world that was similar to our own, and in that way helped to kind of ground these characters and make it seem more believable. And it was the same again in this film. It did go overboard towards the end, but the large majority of the film, it had that same kind of vibe as Man of Steel had that I really liked, because it, like I said, it helped to kind of ground it in a kind of believable, suspended reality and made it feel as if that this is what it would be like if these characters existed in the real world of our world now today. And this is probably how people would really react to these kind of characters in these kind of situations. And I did like that, because it's kind of a refreshing change to a lot of comic movies that are very fantastical and over the top and don't often deal with those kind of themes and issues. And that's what I liked about Man of Steel and this film, is that they kind of try to do it in a more serious and realistic way, as if these characters existed in the real world. This is kind of like how it would go down, how people would react, and I liked it in that respect. Also, speaking of coming off from Man of Steel, I really liked the opening action sequence of the film, in which we see the final battle from Man of Steel, but from Bruce Wayne's perspective on the ground. And I really liked that. Yeah, because I really liked that final battle from Man of Steel, but to see it from the perspective of someone on the ground and from Bruce Wayne's perspective as well, I just love it, because it's just like everyone in that final battle is scared, running away, and Bruce Wayne is the only one willingly running into it. And I just love that. It's just such a Bruce Wayne thing to do. He's just running into the chaos. We just see him driving around as all this chaos is going around, and running in as the building's falling down. I just absolutely love it. I loved how they started the film in that way, and it really helped us to see where Bruce was coming from. Like when we see him there on the ground looking up angry at Superman, we're like, oh, I get it. If I was there, if I was you, if I was one of those people on the ground and I saw all this crazy shit happening all over the place, I would probably feel the way that you're feeling now as well. If I didn't know what was going on, I would be scared. I'd be like, what the hell is happening? And yeah, I think that was a great way to introduce the character of Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, and also to set up how, you know, the motivation he has against Superman, why he doesn't like Superman. And also another thing that I really liked was all these philosophical questions and moral dilemmas surrounding the notion of the existence of a superpowered being such as Superman, and how they're kind of brought up and explored within the first half of the film. I find it really interesting, and I really like that aspect of the first half of the film, because it kind of felt like it was like a Man of Steel sequel in a way. Less of a Batman vs Superman, less of a Justice League prequel. It felt more like a Man of Steel sequel. And in a way, it kind of made me wish it was just a straight up Man of Steel sequel instead. But I do think the inclusion of Batman worked, so I'm not complaining there. And then of course we have the action sequences. And being a Zack Snyder film, without a doubt, you know, you just know the action sequences are going to be amazing. In all of his films, visually he's just an amazing director, very creative in terms of the visuals, and he's just great at shooting action. That's no exception here. The first introductory scene to Batman, it's not an action-packed scene or anything, but it's our first look at this new Batman, and I really love how they shot this scene and made Batman seem like this kind of like mythological figure, like nobody really knows if he exists or not, nobody's really seen him or not, and how they showed him in this scene, it was quite scary, it was almost horror-like, and I really liked that, because it made it feel like, yeah, if you were a criminal you would be really scared. It showed him more like this kind of mythical creature that people couldn't really make out or see what it was, and the way in which he moves around in that scene in which we first see him is just so well done. It's genuinely like you're just watching this kind of big bat creature that you can't really make out what it is, and I really liked how they did that. And then we have the Batmobile chase fight scene that we get. It's a chase, but it's also a fight scene as well, and it's just so awesome. It might be my favourite Batman related scene in the film. It's just great because we get to see the Batmobile in action, and it's probably my favourite Batmobile yet, because as much as I love the Tumblr in the Christopher Nolan movies, Batmobile here is just so badass. It's just relentlessly unstoppable. Like we just see it in this scene as he's chasing after these guys. It's just going through everything. It's just plowing through everything in his way, smashing through walls, knocking over cars. He's just like nothing can stop it. It's just like this bulletproof, unstoppable, just machine. And I just absolutely loved it. It was just such a cool scene. And also, of course, the Batman v Superman fight, the main fight of which the film is titled after. I think it was worth it. It's not really long. It's about 10 minutes, I think I would say. But I think it was a great fight scene. A lot of it is glimpsed in the trailers, but I think it's just so great to watch because it's not one-sided. There's times when Batman has the upper hand, there's times when Superman has the upper hands, and how it goes back and forth between them, taking on each other. It was really quite enthralling to watch in that way, and it was just great seeing these two titans of comic book mythology just battling it out on the big screen for the first time. It was great. It was worth it because it was a great fight scene. Maybe it could have been a little bit longer, had a little bit more to it, but overall, I am happy with it. I did think it was a great fight scene. And then, of course, the final battle with Doomsday that's glimpsed in a couple of the trailers as well. I think that, again, was another great fight sequence. It was a little bit crazy and all over the place in terms of how it was shot, but the actual fight itself was just so badass and awesome. Just seeing the three of them, Superman, Batman and Wonder Woman, the Trinity, teaming up together to take on this powerful monster that really... neither one of them could have handled it on their own, but them teaming up, taking it on together after it was just great. And also the score by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL. I don't think the score was anything amazing. I didn't like it as much as the Man of Steel score, but there were some tracks in the score, some pieces of music that I really liked. I liked the bits that came back from Man of Steel, so like the Superman theme, the piano there, and I also really liked the new Batman theme. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the 1989 Batman. It was slightly reminiscent of that. It was very kind of atmospheric and moody, and it really set the tone of this new Batman. And also, being a Zack Snyder film, you know it's just going to look incredible. And another one of the biggest positives I can give is just the cinematography and just the whole look of the film. It was visually just spectacular. I mean, it's just a film that you could just watch and just have it on mute and it just looks great. There are many scenes throughout the film that just looked like just pages from the comic just brought to life on the big screen, and it's just one of the best things about Zack Snyder. Even though he may not be one of the best directors in terms of storytelling, he's definitely one of the best in terms of visuals. He's very visually creative. He's just such a visionary in that respect. And like I said, there were so many scenes and moments, and even scenes that may have been like, oh, we kind of seen this before, or shot in a very cool, different, unique way that it made it look like something we haven't seen before, and I really like that. Coming on to the negatives now, and I do have quite a lot of negatives. Probably the biggest criticism I could give this film, probably the biggest problem I had with it, were the connections and tie-ins to Justice League and the whole setting up and teasing of these other characters. I don't think it was done as well as it could have been, and after seeing the film I really feel like they could have just taken a lot of those bits out. I mean, we know these films are coming, and even for the general audience, it's like, I may not know these characters, I may not know these films are coming, I still don't think they needed to do it because it's not that far off, but at the same time I think they should have just focused on the whole Batman vs Superman aspect of it, because whenever we got these scenes and these moments teasing other characters and setting up the Justice League film, they just seemed out of place. I don't want to say forced, but they just felt like they were just shoehorned in there just because they needed to be there, just to introduce us to these characters, to set up the Justice League, and they just felt out of place, and they just took me out of the film. Because I'll be watching the film, and then just suddenly we get this vision or this scene or this whatever, just showing us these characters or showing us, teasing a moment to setting up the Justice League, and it just felt out of place, and it felt too forced. It felt too in your face and on the nose. I think they could have done it in a much more subtle and effective way. I think it just felt like it was just being thrown in our faces, like, oh, this is this character, this is this character here, or there's this character here, oh, this character's coming soon, oh, we're leading the Justice League here. I don't know, like it was just bashing it over our heads. These characters we're going to be seeing these characters soon, oh, Justice League's coming soon, they're all going to be coming together in Justice League. And for me, it didn't really work. And also the numerous visions and dream sequences that we got throughout the film, some I did like. Some of these isolated moments I did really like as just moments on their own, but they did feel rather odd and out of place at times. It just seemed to come out of nowhere occasionally, and they just took me out of the film. And like I said, although there were some bits that I did like, when Bruce Wayne was having these visions and that, and then something would happen, it just seemed like it just came out of nowhere for no reason, and it did, like I said, take me out of the film, unfortunately. Probably one of the biggest problems with this film, I would say, is the structuring of the film. The order in which scenes were put often seemed quite jarring and random, as we cut from one scene to another totally unrelated scene in a kind of very disjointed kind of way. You know, it wasn't seamless at all in terms of the editing and how it was cut together. Like, we would go from being in one scene to suddenly, like, especially in the first act of the film, I would say, or the first half, we've got lots of different kind of scenes all over the place, and it didn't seem to be in any kind of order. They just seemed to be going from one random scene to the next, and it didn't seem to be like there was any order there. It didn't seem to be making any sense. And like I said, it would just cut from one scene to the next, and suddenly it would be like in quite a jarring, disjointed way, like I said. And often I was like, oh, we're in another scene here, and I was like, it didn't really, it wasn't done as seamlessly and as effectively as it could have been. Like I said, it was a little messy in that respect. And also there were a lot of scenes, especially early on in the film, that although I liked the first act and the first half of the film, really, there were many scenes that just seemed to just bug me and distract me because they just felt like they didn't really need to be there. I mean, there were a lot of scenes, there's like a whole sequence that goes down in Africa with Laurence, and stuff that happens doesn't really come back to play a much bigger part in the overarching plot of the film. So it kind of feels like, did those scenes and those moments that happened earlier on in the film, did they really need to be there? And I feel like we could have just cut those scenes, and it was cut down the running time, and it probably would have helped with the pacing, helped it move at a better pace. And like I said, these scenes, a lot of kind of quite, random, seemingly unrelated scenes that didn't really feel like they needed to be there, that came early on. I felt like they could have just cut. I don't think they really needed to be there. And also another big negative I have was probably the pacing of the film. It was a long and slow build-up to the first big fight between Batman v Superman. And although it was a really cool fight, like I said, and probably was worth the long build-up, the film leading up to that, like I said, seemed to be more like a Man of Steel sequel, featuring Batman. And then all of a sudden we got this Batman versus Superman fight, and then almost instantaneously we went straight from that into the final battle with Doomsday. The pacing was just off. I mean, Man of Steel, I think, was much better paced. It was more focused on the central story it was telling, and it knew what it was. Whereas this film, despite some undeniably cool, awesome moments, it just felt a little bit all over the place in terms of the incoherent structuring and the uneven pacing of the film. Also, the final battle itself, although it was unimaginably epic and amazing to watch in terms of the action, it did feel a little bit too much for me. Like, it did go a little bit too over the top for me. I mean, I didn't actually like the fight itself, but the actual final battle, I think, just went a little bit too crazy and insane. And just Zack Snyder just seemed to go just all out. Like I said, I really enjoyed the fight, but it just seemed to go a little bit too crazy and insane for me at times, to the point where it was difficult to follow what was going on, just because so much was happening all at the same time. Also, I find it quite odd that although a large proportion of this film was focused on the repercussions and consequences of the final battle of Man of Steel, it just seemed quite odd that then the final battle of this film seemed to be even more destructive. They seemed to go out of their way, like I said, to make the whole final battle of Man of Steel play such a significant part in this story, for them to just then repeat the same mistakes they did before. It just seemed a little odd. I mean, there is kind of like moments where someone just pipes up and just says, "Oh, that's an unpopulated area," but they're still in the city, and even if it is an unpopulated area, I find it hard to believe these massive big shockwaves and explosions are at least affecting the areas around them. So, like I said, I wasn't against the destruction in Man of Steel, but for them to just do the same thing again here, especially after having, all that response to the final battle in this film, it just seemed a little odd for them to do the same thing again. And also the character of Lois Lane in this film, I wasn't too crazy about. I mean, I like Amy Adams in the role, I think she does a good job, but it just seemed like in this film her sole purpose was just to be saved by Superman. Time and time again, she just got herself into situations where she just needed to be saved by Superman. It just kept happening again and again, and it just not only did it make it feel like Lois Lane was just a damsel in distress all the time, it also made it seem like Superman's main priority above and beyond everything else was just saving Lois all the time. It just seemed to get a little tiring and repetitive in that respect. And I think that just about wraps it up. So there we go, that wraps up my review for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Overall, it was a mixed bag. There were things that I absolutely loved about this film. There were scenes that I really liked and thought were really great. But then unfortunately there were a lot of other scenes that I didn't think were very good and were quite lackluster and didn't seem like they even needed to be there, certain scenes. And of course with the setup with the Justice League as well, those scenes bugged me and just seemed to get in the way. So unfortunately, although as much as I would like to give it a high grade because of those scenes that I really liked, I'm not just grading those great scenes that I really liked, I'm grading the film as a whole, you know, the entire film, everything about it. And unfortunately, like I said, even though there were some great scenes and some great moments, there were other scenes that just seemed to bog it down at times and just seemed to let those great moments down a bit. So overall, I did enjoy the film. I did enjoy it surprisingly more than I thought I would, despite all these really negative reviews. I don't think it deserves all the hate it's getting. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people and a lot of critics are making it out to be. It was a little messy, it was a little incoherent, but I don't think it was like Amazing Spider-Man 2, where that was just a complete mess, and it was more concerning setting up Sinister Six and Amazing Spider-Man 3 and other stuff, and it wasn't a great film at all. Like if you took those scenes out of Amazing Spider-Man 2, in which it was setting up other future movies like Sinister Six, the film you'd have left wouldn't be that great. It would still be a bad film. Whereas Batman v Superman, if you did take it out of the Justice League bits and set up some other films, it would have been a better film if it was trimmed down a bit, certain scenes were taken out, it was tightened up. I think it would have been a lot better. But like I said, overall I did enjoy it. I didn't think it was as great as it could have been. I don't think it was the amazing franchise starter that it should have been. But it, like I said, it was a fun movie. There were some great moments in it, some moments that I really liked, some scenes that I thought were really good. But as a film overall, it did have issues, it did have problems. So despite the fact that I did like it and did enjoy it overall, I can't ignore the problems that I have, because there are some quite big problems. So overall, I'm going to give Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice 3 stars. So there we go, that brings my review of Batman v Superman to its conclusion. And yeah, I will be doing a spoiler talk for the film, but I'm going to probably wait because I'm going to be seeing the film a second time on Monday in IMAX. I'm looking forward to seeing it again in IMAX. And I'll just look out for all the things that I may have missed the first time round, and then I'll do a video then after seeing it the second time where I talk about all the spoilery stuff, all the nerdy fanboy stuff, all the spoilerific stuff that I can't talk about in this video, I'll talk about in that video. If you like this video, make sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.